Currencies a lot. Now, it was 2 weeks ago that Elon Musk revealed that he has Asperger's syndrome while appearing on U.S. national TV. It is thought to be the first time that the Tesla chief executive has spoken openly about his being on the autism spectrum. Now, people with Asperger's often focus obsessively on a complex topic and have trouble with social relationships. The very fact that Musk's revelation may be considered groundbreaking in the business world could also mean that disability still remains a difficult topic in a corporate culture. Now, the Valuable 500 is a global disability network that consists of business leaders from 500 of the world's biggest companies, which have agreed to publish quarterly reports into disability representation. It launched at Davos in 2019, and it represents firms with a total annual revenues of more than $8 trillion across 36 countries. Its objective to tackle the, quote, shocking state of disability representation in business. Well, joining us now is Caroline Casey, the founder of the Valuable 500. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us. I actually remember that interview in Davos 2 years ago when you launched it. You've had immense progress. What has been, though, the most frustrating thing about this? We're coming from a very low base. How much progress have we actually done during the pandemic?
Well, I think the pandemic, well, first of all, thank you for having me back. It's wonderful to be here and having announced this critical, it's the biggest business move on disability inclusion ever. Look, the pandemic, I think, has done, it has exploded or really shown us the gross inequity and inequality in our world. But one thing it also has done, it has shown us that a business system can flex and it can change when the intention is there. And what we have seen is, for a lot of reasons before the pandemic, there were so many reasons that disability was excluded because for people to maybe get into work, it was too hard or it was too costly. And the whole world has worked remotely. And I think this is the greatest opportunity we have right now. And when we're looking at growing out of this and looking at our recovery, if you think about the spending power of the global disability market, which, because we have 1.3 billion people with a mother and a father, that's 70% of our global economy, that is 13 trillion. So I think this pandemic has given us two things. It shows us the system can flex and change if it wants to, and it shows that there is a huge need for us to be engaging with this consumer base as we have inclusive growth. And at the moment, you said it yourself, we have 500 of the world's biggest companies. And what makes this so exciting for us, this was not a pledge or a tick box exercise. What we're doing is we're announcing phase two to activate this community, to improve the state of disability inclusion in business. We've 13 global iconic leader companies. And let me just give you the scale of this, right? We're talking about companies like Sony and Mahindra and Google and Apple and Deloitte and EY. This is big companies committing, their CEOs and their businesses committing to really exploring how do we serve our consumers with disability? How do we report on disability? Do we even know how many people with disabilities are working in our businesses? Do we, as the leaders of our business, speak about this? And that's why Elon Musk speaking was so important.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, first of all, do we have the numbers of how many employees have disabilities at these big companies? And do you actually need to put some kind of targets to make sure that it goes quickly enough instead of it just being, you can have the best goodwill in the world, but then if this wanes, then it will be only a tick box exercise.
Absolutely. Listen, we have to look at how we report on disability performance internally in our companies. And also, can I say, we need to have disability metrics in business performance tools, because if we don't measure things, it doesn't get done. Now, we commissioned a piece of research with Tortoise, and there's some shocking stats here, that we have in our FTSE 100 companies, we do not have any leader or senior executive or board member who discloses having a disability. And that's why Elon Musk's story is such a big deal. I have a disability, I didn't disclose, I understand why we don't. But if we don't see it, we can't be it. The second one is only 12% of our FTSE 100 companies are reporting on disability representation. Now, we estimate, and we know most likely, that our companies have anything between 15 to 18% of their employee base have a lived experience of disability. 80% of disability is invisible. But the legislation protects people like me not to disclose. But I'm challenging us going, well, why are we creating cultures where people should have to hide? Why do we know that 7% of our C-suite have a lived experience of disability, but 4 out of 5 of them are not disclosing it, like Elon Musk just did or Richard Branson just did? Because if the leader is willing to disclose it, then individuals will, and then we can serve people with disabilities, and we can ensure they get jobs that are meaningful and they can be retained and have careers within companies. So if we're not talking about it, if we're not reporting about it, and it's not enough to say, well, this is too difficult. And that's why I think the Valuable 500 is so important. We've got to hack solutions together. We've got to find a way to solve this problem, not just navel gaze the problem.
So, Caroline, so when you speak to chief executives, and maybe the chief executives that actually have signed up to this, what do they say is their biggest barrier? Is it actually, if they employ someone, that then they make sure that the environment is safe and that they progress, or is it actually hiring people with disabilities, or is it measuring?
There's two things that I would say. Still the fear of not doing enough. Still the fear of getting it wrong. Hence the importance of us having this collective community where we can share best practice and innovate together. It genuinely is fear still. But the second one that I think is, I genuinely do not believe business understands the extraordinary return on investment and the need to future-proof your business. Disability is going to touch every one of our lives. And if you look at how this pandemic touched us, we know that's to be true. Can I just say, isn't it extraordinary? This shows how little we understand. 1 in 3 of our FTSE 100 companies' websites are not accessible. Today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. How on earth are you going to be able to access